Alright, attempt number 2. Like I said, we finished Metal Gear Solid last time, so we're doing Metal Gear Solid VR missions now to get our training in before we start Metal Gear Solid 2. Let's go. We got this.
Don't get careless.
Thanks to the VR training I did on board the Discovery.
Alright, you heard the man. We gotta start our VR training all over again. Let's see, we beat Metal Gear Solid 1. And so, and we had to do the VR training before MGS2. But then I decided at the last minute to go play the remake of Metal Gear Solid 1. So we went back in time a little bit. So now we gotta do the VR training all over again before we start Metal Gear Solid 2 again. So, here we go again. Another 5-6 hour stream of 200 VR missions. Let's do it! I'm just kidding, guys. I'm not gonna do that. I wanted to see how many people would buy that, though, and actually think I was going to. But no, we're not doing it. Don't worry. We're moving on. Let me just adjust my audio settings real quick. I changed it for this game a little bit. I changed it back to where it needs to be. Right there. And then, well, off we go. No, the game we're actually playing is, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, but the HD edition. I bought the HD Legacy Collection, whatever thingamajig, for PS3 a long time ago. Just so I could have the whole collection. There it is, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection. Just so I could have the whole collection on one console, PS3. That's how I got the free little download code vouchers for these two games, Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid VR Missions. But yeah, we're starting Metal Gear Solid 2. And it comes with the updated features from the newer version of Metal Gear Solid 2, which was called Substance, I believe. I never played that version, so I don't know about the extra features that that game had. I only know the original game, Sons of Liberty, which I showed it before. I have the little DVD case right here. Still have it. The original PS2 game of Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. It's not even one of the greatest hits editions. It's actually just like the first release copy. The hell? This just starts like this? There's no intro or nothing? Oh shit, okay, that's louder than I thought it would be. Audio should be good though. Also, I would have started sooner, but I had to do it like a test stream. Because my bitrate was, or not my bitrate, but like I was dropping mad frames. It was lagging so much. So I had to fix that. But I did notice in the old VOD when I did that nothing was missing and it wasn't choppy. So even if we start dropping frames, I think it only affects live viewers, people watching right now. But when you go back to watch the recording like I did to see, because it was saying I was dropping more than 60% frames, which is really, really bad. And yeah, when I checked it live, it was bad. But when I went to go back to watch the recording, everything was fine. It wasn't choppy at all. So it only affects the live viewing process, but it doesn't actually affect Twitch's ability to record or keep a recording of your live stream, you know, the VOD. At least it didn't seem that way. The whole video seemed totally intact and everything. But yeah, I fixed all that stuff. I'm not dropping any frames now. It's at 0%. We're good to go. Alright, so what is this? This is the menu you get when you start up the HD edition. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, 1964. Virtuous Mission and Operation Snake Eater. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, 1974. It's 10 years later. Oh, this is a timeline thing. The Peace Walker incident. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, 2007 to 2009. Manhattan Tanker Incident and Big Shell Incident. Well, this is a game we're playing. I've never played these two. I was planning on playing Metal Gear Solid 3 after Sons of Liberty, of course. This is going down the release order. But now I'm not sure, like, I'll have to look this up now on the Wikipedia or just Google it or something. Did Peace Walker come out before or after Metal Gear Solid 4? Like, did they make this like a between Metal Gear Solid 3 and 4 sort of game? Or, I don't know, I'll have to look that up. Maybe we'll have to include it in the marathon. Either way, as you can tell from the chronological timeline that's right here in the game, these are obviously major prequels. By major, I mean really far back in the past. Before even Metal Gear 1. So, spoiler alert. Alright, MGS2, let's get going. We've wasted enough time. This description has spoilers, so I'm just gonna go into it. I just scanned it right now. Don't read it unless you want spoilers. It spoils part of the game, I just noticed. I've played this game before, so to me it doesn't matter, but played this game a ton of times back in the day. Back in the day. What is this day you people speak of? This day. Back in this particular day. Oh, it's before you came along. I'm quoting something very niche right now that hardly anybody's gonna get. Because it's very niche. It looks like the video game audio is going through. Hopefully it's not terribly loud. I don't think so though. It should be fine. Oh yeah, I gotta test the soundboard. Okay. That looks good.
Bruh.
A Hideo Kojima game. Oh my god, this is bringing back memories already. Just the music alone. I haven't seen this in ages. But I'm already getting flashbacks to, like, my teen years. David Hayter and Quentin Flynn. Let's go! Game is spoiling itself, man. Holy shit. There's so much going on. I got chills, man. The music, the theme song is so fucking good for this game. Holy shit. It used to give me chills when I played it back in the day. Still does the same now, man. It had the same effect on me. Jesus. I was like having a nerdgasm of nostalgia right now. That's crazy. Like, this game is... Goddamn, everything looks so crisp and clean right now. I got used to the GameCube shit. You know, on the Wii, using the regular AV cables, converting it to HDMI, but it still looks like shit compared to this. What the fuck was that? Dude, all I did was press L2. What the hell did I just do? Oh fuck, it went back to the intro. But, oh my god, dude, just the intro is so fucking powerful. The game spoils a lot of itself, you see a lot of scenes, but like, you know, it's all done in that sort of action movie trailer style where you can't tell what the hell is going on because it's just all, you just get bombarded with all of it. So it doesn't really spoil because there's no context, right? It doesn't really spoil anything, but you do see things that are going to happen. You just see them out of context. Oh great, you can give your audience an epileptic seizure. Okay, don't push the L2 button. I'm in awe right now. I'm just saying over and over because I don't even know what to say. Like this is one hell of a trip down memory lane. Keep in mind, this was my first full Metal Gear Solid experience, was this game. Played it several times. Well, technically I played the demo of the first game, I said that before. But I never got to actually play the original first game. So I played this, and then I got to play the Twin Snakes, the remake of the first game. And I played that over and over a lot of times back in my tween years. Early 2000s, you know, well, mid-2000s, because it came out in 2004. Not this game, I'm talking about the remake of the Twin Snakes that we just played. So all of this is like, it's taking me back. I'm just like, holy shit, this was... Oh, you can still do this here. Okay, Jesus Christ. Why put an Easter egg like that on the title, like just for pushing L2? It scares the shit out of you, dude. Alright, let's see what we got going on. Radar in Sons of Liberty does not appear during intrusion view. That's type 2. Off, obviously. Well, I guess I'll put type 1, but it doesn't really change much. Real-time cutscenes, full screen. Letterbox. Oh, I think I know what it's talking about. When technically you're still playing the game, like it doesn't cut into a pre-rendered cutscene or anything. I don't think they are pre-rendered, but you know what I mean. Like, when it doesn't cut to an actual, like, full motion capture cutscene and you're still technically in the game, but there's, like, a small cutaway where, like, you'll see a dialogue between two soldiers or something. Usually, and we saw this in the first Metal Gear Solid 2, it'll go into letterbox, where it just kind of, the black borders appear above and underneath the screen to show that it's, like, a little mini cutscene and you can't control anything. You can leave it so it's full screen now, I guess. Didn't know that was a thing. Brightness adjustments. I think this is fine. Can you even change it here, or is it just... Adjust the monitor brightness so that the grayscale under the red line is no longer seen. That's already true. In fact, I can't even see a good chunk of it above the red line. What about for you guys? Actually, it's perfect for you guys. I can see just a tiny bit of gray above the red line for the stream preview, but nothing below it, so that's good. Home view? What is this? First person view control type. I gotta relearn everything because we're back on a PlayStation controller, not a GameCube one. I'm guessing this means inverted, like y-axis inverted. I'm gonna go with reverse and hope I don't screw myself over. Yeah, group and linear, group is better. Quick change, unequip or previous? Unequip works better for me, it's the classic way. I'm used to that. I'm guessing these are extra things that Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance got, which I never played. Snake Tails transpiring, I don't know what all this is, but yeah. Alright, let's just go into the game then. New game. Connected to PlayStation Network. To unlock trophies while using transferring, you must be signed in. For the initial save. To your PlayStation... Okay, whatever. Tanker plant or tanker and plant separately? This was a feature in the original game too, I know what it's talking about. It's spoilers, I can't really clarify what the hell it means, but let's just go for it. Oh shit, hold on, let's read this. For beginners, very easy. Easy for non-action experts. Normal, standard difficulty level. Hard for confident players. The Giga Chads. Alright, we're Giga Chads, so we're going hard. I'm just kidding, I'm not doing that shit. Of course I'm a beginner. I haven't played this game in literally over 2 decades. Okay, that's an exaggeration. It's almost, but no. Wait, this game came out in like 2002, didn't it? It's actually been about 2 decades. Oh my god. It's actually probably been about 2 decades. Holy shit. Radar and Sons of Liberty. Oh, right, this. I already had this in the fucking settings. I don't know why it's asking me again, but I guess it's in case you didn't go there. Yeah, type 1. Alright, here we go. This story is fictional. Any and all similarities to characters, groups, or other entities in real life are coincidental. But that's just what they want you to think. Don't fall for their lies.
The Hudson River.
Big Brother is watching.
We had classified intelligence that a new type of Metal Gear was scheduled for transport. The whole thing stank, but our noses have been out in the cold too long.
George Washington Bridge. Holy shit, I remember this intro being way blurrier than this. It's my first time playing the HD edition. This is crazy. This is so crisp and clean so far. This I remember being a fucking freak show. Like the lights just blind the hell out of you. There's only one car on the road. But this right here looks so clean. Jesus Christ. Alright, so Snake's narrating something that happened 2 years ago, apparently. So we're in the past right now. The Hudson River is in New York City, for those who don't know, so that's, you know. That's why we're in a crowded, busy bridge with a big-ass metropolis city center in the background. Bungee cord at first. I was worried. I was like, did he just commit suicide? What the fuck? No, he's just being a badass as usual. Still has that stealth camo that Otacon gave him. God, the bungee cord physics are all fucked up. They were trying their best. This is the PS2 era, right? Cut them some slack. It's pretty badass back in the day. You know what makes it look so different? They used Frail's, what do they call it? Trailing? Like, it would make the screen really blurry, kind of, to try to cover up low frame rates. And that made it super blurry. And then you couldn't see the imperfections in the animations like we saw just now. Now that that shit's gone and you can see everything crisp and clear, you can see the animations are not as smooth as our nostalgia goggles would make us think. We saw some of the trailing. Oh. Ocelot, he's got two hands again. And it looks like Snake's already been busted. Caught before he even started, man. He just landed, he's already been seen. And he doesn't even realize it. But yeah, we saw some of the trails effect. Whatever the hell it's... I forget its actual name, but that trailing effect was in Twin Snakes, and you couldn't turn it off. It seems like this game doesn't have it. That was a very fast title screen flash. Or title logo, I guess. Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. Solid Snake, David Hayter. Here we go. First Codec call. Oh, that's where that line comes from. Oh, how convenient.
You bastard!
A lot's happened since the Shadow Moses incident, eh?
Visual confirmation of the new Metal Gear being transported by that tanker and bring back photographic evidence. But I want you first to go up to the top level of the infrastructure, to the bridge. We need to find out where the tanker is headed.
A little reconnaissance, huh?
There's too much we don't know about this new prototype. Capabilities, deployment method. We don't even know how close it is to completion. If we know where the testing arena is, I can start to draw some reasonable conclusions.
All right, I'll head to the bridge ASAP.
Try to avoid confrontations. Our goal is to collect evidence on Metal Gear development and expose it to the world. It would be best if you could get out of there without alerting anyone.
Don't worry, I know the drill. We're not terrorists.
Very good. Don't you forget that you're part of Philanthropy now, an anti-Metal Gear organization and officially recognized by the UN.
Recognized, but still fringe, Otacon.
All right, let's look at your gear. Your weapon is a tranquilizer gun converted from a Beretta M92F.
M9.
It's a little hard to work with because you have to reload after each shot since the slide locks.
Better than scavenging at the mission site. Good suppressor, too.
The chemical stun will take effect in a few seconds and last for hours. You can take down an elephant with that thing. Check out the laser sighting, too. The effects of the anesthetic round will vary depending on what part of the body is hit. We're talking about a difference of tens of seconds between hitting limbs, chest, or head. As for the equipment... Hey, Snake? Cigarettes? What's wrong with you?
It's kind of a lucky charm.
You haven't read the Surgeon General's warning, have you? Here's the digital camera. Works almost the same way as your old one.
They don't look armed.
Hey, Earth to Snake. These are nice, upstanding Marines, not terrorists. Don't get caught. You're in stealth mode here.
Sure, and if it comes to that, a little beauty sleep never hurt anyone. By the way, Otacon, are you sure of this intelligence?
Absolutely. Hacked it out of the Pentagon's classified files myself.
No traces?
Oh, please, I'm too good for that.
But this might be a trap. Remember, there's a price on our heads.
You're just being paranoid.
I hope so. Those men, you wouldn't think they were anything but civilians from here.
With all the ships passing on the river and in the harbor, putting uniformed Marines on the deck would be a bad idea. People can get a clear view of the water from Riverside, too.
The water line is too high. According to the navigational plans, this ship should have discharged its cargo upriver.
It's in there, no doubt about it.
The military trains you to watch for threats from the stern on a boat. That's SOP for counter-terror ops, too. Security should be tighter.
You worry too much.
Where's the target?
Satellite surveillance is a major international pastime these days. I'd say the cargo holds, safely below the deck. Do you see the entrance to the holds?
Looks like there are a few entryways into the crew quarters. The chopper. What? Looks like we're not the only ones after Metal Gear tonight.
Is that a chopper I just heard?
Affirmative. Probably another cavalry. What's their game? Hijack?
They're probably targeting the ship's controls.
Otacon, how many men do you need to take over a tanker of this size?
The ship is run by a computer, so I'd say about 18 people.
AKS 74U. Russians?
You sure?
No Marine barber touched that head of hair. I'm transmitting a photo. Let's get an ID on him ASAP.
I'm on it.
For the old country, comrade.
It's rewind time.
Looks like the tanker's theirs now. K-60 Kasatka.
Kasatka? Kamov chopper, right? Killer whale.
I'm moving them, yeah.
I see. Not in a million years. Not in a million years.
So yeah, now we got fully, full 3D model animated, codec calls. It's not the little green fuzzy anime drawings anymore. And you can actually move the characters on the screen like I was doing with the analog sticks. Also, if you heard Snake's voice interjecting, even, tripping over himself there, that was me pushing R2. You can hear the character's supposed thoughts while they're doing the codec call. But I mean, none of it makes any sense. Why was he saying not in a million years? It's just a random sort of Easter egg to fuck around when you're bored with the codec call. Like, if you're playing the game for the 100th time and you're not skipping the scene, but you kind of just want to dick around, I guess. These games had a lot of Easter eggs like that, like we saw in the Twin Snakes as well. There's a lot of Easter eggs in these games where you can just sort of dick around for the sake of dicking around and nothing else. I'm already missing a bullet. My LCD's triggered because he shot one in the demo just now when it was showing me how to, like, you know, pop and shoot like this. There we go. You notice this time there was no option for me to make it so that I can just trigger or toggle first person. I have to actually hold the button this time, unlike on the Twin Snakes. I like how he looked straight at me and didn't see me. Pull. So if I'm like this, can I still do that? Oh, you can still do this. Okay, cool. Look at the radar. Who the hell strafes that fast, right? Hey, we still have this thing. A sensor detecting life forms. Vibrates on enemy approach. Highly addictive and hazardous to your health. Yeah, we know. What the hell is this? Empty magazines. To distract enemies. Oh, free ammo. God, everything is so crisp. This is not how I remember it. I remember this game being a lot more blurry, like I said. This HD edition looks fucking sick. I'm going left. Oh, shit. I was afraid he was going to turn the corner and see me under the stairs. Oh, we're not going up against Marines anymore now. I don't have to feel so guilty if I have to get my hands dirty.
Freeze.
Stay cool. Wait, how do you put the weapon down now? Oh, I guess you have to release it gently. Give me your dog tag, fool. Thank you. Mr. Josh Spires. Alright, let's see. Shake a ration free from his ass. Animal control. Bullets. What's up? That took forever. Okay, that sounds like an annoying pain in the ass, but whatever. So, one thing I want to bring up. You guys hear how quiet it is during the codec calls, right? I can't do anything about that. I noticed it too. It's not just you guys, it's me too. Like, everything else is super loud, but when they're in codec calls, it's like dead quiet. Like, you can hardly fucking hear them. Thank God for the subtitles, right? I don't know what to do about that. At first I was like, oh, maybe I should change the volume. And then they went from the codec screen to when they showed us the preview of shooting the M9, the little tutorial they did before the cutscene where the Russians took over. And suddenly Ocelot and Snake's voice was much louder. Like, it actually matched the environment. But when you're actually in this screen right here, it's hella quiet. I don't know why. I kind of noticed that a little bit with the Twin Snakes too, but it's way worse here. The audio balancing for when you're on this screen, their voices are super quiet. The audio balancing is terrible compared to the Twin Snakes and the original Metal Gear Solid 1 on PlayStation that we played before. I don't know what's going on there. So he's trying to be Mei Ling now because she used to tell us a proverb after every time we saved, right? But that wasn't right. That's not exactly what that saying is implied to mean, by most people who use it anyway. All for one, one for all is not what he said it is. You can toss their bodies overboard here. We'll try to minimize casualties like before though, so I won't do that, unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay. How do I... So that's the knock. X is crouch, triangle... Ah, there we go. Triangle is the action button, what used to be the Y button on the GameCube controller. Got it. Is that how I jump over rails too? Yep. Okay. So, right off the bat, this game kind of just throws you into things. I mean, there's still a shit ton of cutscenes. We've already been playing for half an hour and I'm barely actually playing the game. That's how these games are. They're fucking movies. I said it before. But still, they're like interactive movies. Right off the bat, they just throw you into this, and you get very little context as to what's going on outside of what Otacon already explained to us. But there's nothing being said about why Snake and Otacon are suddenly doing this after Shadow Moses. Because the way the Shadow Moses incident ended, Snake rode off into the sunset with Meryl to go like start a new life with her, and he said he was gonna find a way to live with some kind of purpose now instead of just isolating himself away from the rest of the world like he was before that, right? And now all of a sudden they're here. Meryl is nowhere to be seen. They haven't even talked about her. All that's still like kind of in the back of the player's mind if they played the first game. They're just kind of like, why are we here suddenly doing this? What's going on? Did Snake just have a change of heart about how he wants to live after finding out that Ocelot leaked Metal Gear Rex's test data on the black market? And if so, why is Meryl not with him? Did she not like want to join in on this new effort? Did she go lead a different life somewhere else? What the hell's going on? So it does feel a little disconnected so far, but I think the mystery is meant to be intentional. In fact, I'm pretty much almost positive it's meant to be intentionally obscure about the events that might have happened between the first and second game. Oh, that reminds me. I jumped the gun. On the main menu, there was actually like, just like how in the first Metal Gear Solid there was a recap of Metal Gear 1 and 2. There was actually a recap of the first game I forgot to read before we started this. Oops. Well, there we go. I accidentally hit the power button on my PS3. Good thing I saved it, right? I was about to exit to the main menu anyway. Like, literally, as I was saying that, I was like, oh, I just saved it, I should go back to the main menu. And then I accidentally kicked... Don't worry, I don't have shoes on, I ain't damaged it. I accidentally lightly tapped with my toe, because that's how low it is to the ground, my PS3's power button, so... Well, now we can go do that. I was about to be like, how do you go back to the main menu? Well, my foot solved that problem. I gotta move this PS3 now so that doesn't happen again at a crucial moment. There we go, it's further back now. But yeah, I wanted to go back to read the recap really quick. Although, like I said, even if you read that, because I remember reading it as a kid when I first played this, it doesn't necessarily... Well, I'll let you find out for yourself, because the way it's written is not the way you'd expect. It's not a sort of direct recap towards the player about what happened in the first game. It's kind of more of like, give me a sec. No, that's not the right one. It's more of like a recap that, I don't know how to call it, but like it's sort of a built-in recap. Like it's written like a news article in the game's universe, if that makes any sense. Talking about the Shadow Moses incident. But it has a very familiar author. At least when you see the name, you'll see what I'm talking about. Alright, good thing good thing PS3 reloads pretty quick. We had to wait a little bit for the console to start up, but at least the game's menu loaded up quick. If there is no way to exit the game, I probably was going to have to do this anyway. turn the console off and on again. Or actually, no, I could have just done this and gone to quit game. But again, it was an accident. Thank God it's a lot further away now. Again, that could have happened much later at a much worse moment. Like during the middle of a very long sequence of cutscenes. That would have been bad. Alright, let's see. So I think it was in Special. There it is. Alright, I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, I stopped it. Previous story, there we go. So I forgot to do this when we first started. The New York Mirror. All booked up. In the Darkness of Shadow Moses, The Unofficial Truth. Author Nastasha Romanenko. Reviewed by George Franklin. Very familiar author, right? Some topics in the recent American past have the immediacy and the power that still engage our collective imagination. Names like the Grassy Knoll or Roswell roll off our tongue with deliberateness reserved by most other nations for Holy Lands. With this new non-fiction account from Nastasha Romanenko, Shadow Moses, the scene of a nuclear siege 2 years ago, is set to join their ranks. Yeah, the Grassy Knoll's referring to JFK's assassination. Roswell, New Mexico. I'm not sure exactly what happened in that incident. I know it was significant because people do talk about it, but they also tied to conspiracy theories involving aliens and such. Official history states that the takeover of a nuclear weapons disposal facility on a lonely outpost in the Fox Islands, Alaska, was the work of a radical right-wing group. Their demands for the release of group members incarcerated in federal penitentiaries were never met, and the incident was speedily resolved by the successful deployment of a commando unit. BS, the author asserts. Bullshit. Which, yeah, that is complete bullshit. That is not what happened. It's like, that is not at all what happened. Romanenko says that she served as an advisor to the Nuclear Emergency Search Team and deconstructs what she claims to be a cover-up story by the government with precision. According to the author, Shadow Moses Island was nothing less than the U.S. Army's testing grounds for a top-secret weapon known as Metal Gear Rex, an all-terrain bipedal tank with advanced nuclear capabilities. As for the facility's takeover, Romanenko alleges that it was the U.S. military's own shadowy wetworks force known as Foxhound that staged an armed insurrection in a bid for Rex's possession. This is true. The government responds to this crisis by sending in a lone operative, a former Foxhound member known only by the codename Solid Snake, into Shadow Moses. His infiltration is aided by a remote mission control team consisting of an unidentified Colonel Campbell, a Foxhound medical chief Naomi, a radar and electronics expert Mei Ling, supposedly a teenager. She was that young? And the author herself. Once on the island, Snake joins forces with Metal Gear's developer-turned-prisoner, Otacon, to eradicate the weapon of mass destruction. Among the other remarkable characters that make an appearance in Romanenko's expose is another Foxhound commando, a revolver virtuoso called Shalashaska, also known as Revolver Ocelot. One of the most controversial allegations in the book deals with this figure's connection to a disavowed Russian militia led by a Colonel Gerlukovich, which is, I think, could be the guy we just saw, actually, in the intro of Metal Gear Solid 2, who knows? Romanenko paints a bleak picture of a 1,000-strong, highly disciplined army with nuclear weaponry operating covertly within the American border. Even more irresistible to conspiracy scholars and students of recent history is her thinly veiled suggestion that the whole affair was planned from the beginning by certain forces inside the US government. Holy shit. Well, we do know what's-his-name might have known more than he... Actually, well, with the post-credits scene of Metal Gear Solid 1, she's 100% correct, right? The president knew about it, and he was actually in league with Ocelot. Ocelot was working for him. And the Department of Defense, whatever his name was, I already forgot. Donald Anderson, I think it was. The U.S. Army and the usual suspect of federal agencies have issued a statement denouncing the book as a complete fabrication. Well, of course, they're not going to admit that any of this is actually true. However, with a number of detailed eyewitness accounts that back up the author's assertions cropping up daily on the web, the denials serve more to enhance the book's growing reputation. Shadow Moses is an engrossing read for casual and serious readers alike, and promises to involve readers in immediate debates over the truth of the matter for many years to come. Excerpted from the literary review column All Booked Up, The New York Mirror. There you go. They kept it short and sweet. Oh wait, there's more. You unlock more. The shocking conspiracy behind Shadow Moses. What do we got? The Shocking Conspiracy Behind Shadow Moses by Gary McGolden. The island of Shadow Moses lies due north of Alaska's Fox Islands, deep in the Arctic Circle. Above one of its rocky cliffs stands a cabin normally used for meteorological surveys, and it was here that I found myself. Seated on a chair with my hands bound behind my back and a burlap sack covering my entire head. A blizzard rages outside, and the cabin was a dark, silent patch somewhere inside the storm. I could sense at least 4 men around me. They had been interrogating me for what felt like hours now. The burlap sack is pungent with the traces of coffee beans. In the biting cold of the cabin, images of Brazil come to me unbidden. Alleys coiled through with vivid, untended profusion of flowers. Yeah, untended. Children with skin like frothy chocolate, sunshine capable of burning out the cornea, erupting between palm fronds. I can feel my senses starting to fail. The man in the front of me asks for the 2nd or the 100th time. I'm gonna ask you again. What's in the optical disc? The one that Ocelot took with Metal Gear Rex's test data? I'm guessing, but something ain't right about this. I told you, I don't know. I just found it, okay? You're lying, you bastard! A fist explodes into the pit of my stomach, bringing up a peanut butter sandwich of many hours ago along with the rusty taste of blood. The relentless beating and numerous knife cuts of the past hour of my whole body screaming with pain, but I refused to tell them what they wanted. I had too much invested at this point. Too many days of dangerous investigation into the story of a lifetime. There was no way I was going to give it all up at this point. That's enough. A voice spoke up from somewhere in the back of the cabin. We have the disc back. Just get rid of them so we can get out of this place. Even in my current sorry state, I was still a journalist. He had said, we have the disc back. That meant that my hosts were the original owners of that optical disc. The last piece of the puzzle was in its place. I knew beyond a shadow of doubt that everything recorded on the disc was true, and that the conspiracy I had suspected did in fact exist. At that moment I heard a window shatter. A raging storm outside seemed to gain entry to the cabin in an instant, and I heard thin screams from the captors that encircled my chair. The next second they had already fallen heavily onto the floor. The brief confusion ended before I regained enough presence of mind to even panic. Whoever was now here, whatever had happened, my tormentors were obviously out of commission. But now I could hear measured footsteps approaching across the floor. This person had just saved my life. Who was it? Or was I about to share the other's fate? The footsteps came to a halt in front of me, but strangely enough, I did not feel any sort of a presence nearby. The burlap was slowly lifted from around my head, pulled off by an unseen hand. The stinging night air cooled my face, and my eyes gradually regained focus in the darkened room. And I could finally see who it was that stood before me. Just out of the sight of most of its citizens, a massive conspiracy determines the working of this nation. Really? Weapons of mass destruction secretly developed by the military. Super soldiers re-engineered into war machines through genetic manipulation. Yeah. Liquid Snake told us all about that in the first game. A killer virus that only targets specific individuals with deadly accuracy. Fox die? Yeah. Tanks that walk rather than roll, and carry a nuclear payload. Metal Gear? A covert organization, the third and the most powerful political party. My encounter with which landed me in this chair in the Alaskan winter. Well, this is new. A third political party. Here in the US? That's definitely news to me. You have my attention, sir. All of these are a part of the truth I found sealed within the optical disc, and I intend to share what I have learned in the pages to follow. That includes everything I now know about our government, and the secret arena where an even greater power pulls the strings. This is the truth many have glimpsed but never dared to talk about. Everything detailed in this book actually happened, and after I lived it, my world was no longer the same safe place I knew. Neither, I promise, will be yours if you have the courage to keep going. It all began a month ago. The postman rings. A month before my dramatic escape from death on Shadow Moses, I was having late breakfast in my apartment in New York. Ever since an alien abduction episode in my childhood, I'd been plagued by persistent ringing in my ears. Really? A large patch of mud was my undoing. I slipped, fell, and was knocked unconscious. When I came to, it was already dawn. Later, I was trying to see the bump on the back of my head in the mirror when I saw it instead. A small hole, about the size of a pinprick, had been made behind my ear. You learn a little something when you watch as much TV as I did. Oh, I'm sure. There was no doubt that I had been abducted by a passing UFO and had spent the hours while unconscious with alien beings. Unfortunately, no one in the area recalled seeing a UFO, and not a single person had the sense to listen to my story. Trust me, I think they have every reason not to after hearing some of this, but please go on. I realize now that this was the day I decided to uncover truth for a living and become a journalist, excuse me. But back to the present day. These are not good starting credentials for a supposed journalist. For credibility purposes anyway, this is not good. But back to the present day, it turned out that the ringing wasn't in my ear, but from the doorbell. The thing shrieked somewhere south of a baritone bat sonar, barely within the range of human hearing. Blamed the mangling it took from a particularly displeased visitor. Outside the door was a mailman, and in the mailman's hand was a thick manila envelope. On the envelope was a label, addressed to me. A letter bomb! I pressed my ear against the envelope and concentrated hard. But not a tick from the thing. Of course. No one uses analog watches and bombs these days. That's why they call it the digital age. In fact, why would there even be a watch in a letter bomb? The point is that the unlucky recipient opens it and the bomb goes off, which means that it's actually the completely silent envelopes that are dangerous. I knew that opening that flap would send my eggs to the big omelet in the sky, but you don't get to be an investigative journalist for thinking inside the box. I tore through the bottom of the envelope instead. Rip! No! The contents of the suspicious envelope dropped to the floor with lightning speed. In this world, you can never be too careful. Let this be a warning to you, readers. When circumstances compel you to open an envelope from the bottom, turn it upside down first. You mean you didn't do that? As a rule, I discovered objects fall down, and this is what happened to the contents of my lethal envelope. Straight down into a half-eaten depth of a delivery pizza forgotten on the floor. This journalist is losing more credibility by the second. Like this, who is going to take this guy's account of Shadow Moses seriously? Or whatever the fuck he was talking about at the beginning in the intro after seeing this. Oh my god. I think that might be the point though. Whoever wrote this. Okay, yada yada. I don't recall when exactly this food item arrived on these premises, but the thing was definitely a museum piece by now. Fortunately, it wasn't a bomb, but an optical storage disc, now liberally smeared with peanut butter. Gross. The disc was the kind that comes in a clear plastic casing, through which the rainbow sheen of the circular unit shone. I gazed into it a while, thinking of the UFO from that fateful day. Anyway, I fished the optical disc out, noting the lack of a label. A quick wash at the sink got rid of the crud it had accumulated. The disc was drying by the window as I hunted through the now harmless envelope for clues. A single sheet of Xerox paper was stuck to the inside and it read, "From the desk of Max Smithson, Editor-in-Chief, Mega Surprise Magazine. I'm mailing you this optical disc that was sent to the edit department. It's right up your alley. See if you can turn up something more. We'll do a book if you get enough stuff together. This is your chance for a comeback, so don't screw it up." I'm guessing the book deal happened because that's what we're reading right now. We're reading a book that is 129 pages long. We're on page 22. Yeah, I saw the number down there. Don't worry. I'm committed. Max is an old friend and used to manage most of my book deals way back when. We hadn't seen each other much since I gave up writing. Not that he has the right to tell me about comebacks and screwing up, but I find myself growing excited by the prospect of writing another book. But there was a problem, and it was a big one. How the hell was I going to get to the disc's content? Well, you don't have a... Well, he might not actually, yeah. This is early 2000s. Not everybody had computers and home internet connections yet. The shocking truth within. My next-door neighbor is a starving college student, and I hit him up for the use of his computer now and then. I banged on his door and screamed repeatedly until he shuffled up to the door half asleep. Once inside, I made a beeline for the piece of junk and stuck the disk into the drive. The icon appeared on the display with a gentle whir. The file name read, "In the Darkness of Shadow Moses." But an urgent click on the icon only brought up an error message. What nefarious scheme was this? What secret encryption was preventing me from accessing the data? I clicked again and again with the same result and started to gnaw on the keyboard in frustration. The starving student came running over, wailing about his equipment. So he picked up the keyboard and started chewing on it. just to try to get it to work. What the fuck is he doing? Of course the college student's freaking out. That's like his lifeline to do his homework and shit. Or research like essays. Excuse me. He typed in some Moonman language, avoiding patches of my spit, and a frighteningly cheerful application startup screen appeared on the display. Then, lo and behold, I finally laid my eyes on the dense mass of text, the contents of the disk. At the very top it read, "In the Darkness of Shadow Moses" by Nastasha Romanenko. The starving student was being scholarly and trying to read the text over my shoulder. I knocked him out with a punch to the solar plexus and devoured the file's contents. Great. You're very nice and grateful to people who help you. Jesus. It was like a blow to the head with a frozen tuna. My brain was reeling from the shock. The file was full of wild stuff, top-secret conspiracies, incredible genetic experimentation, cold-blooded military deployment of classified weapons. This was the most incredible stuff I had ever come across. So it's not the Metal Gear Rex test data then. It's Nastasha Romanenko's account of what actually happened on an optical disc somehow got to this magazine and then mailed to this idiot who calls himself a journalist. The unofficial facts according to the disc. Most readers should be aware of the series of strange military actions involving an island farther north of Alaska's Fox Islands, some 2 years ago. The island was called Shadow Moses and received a series of well-documented but never explained visits of obvious significance. USS Discovery, an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine, was ordered away from its designated training area and was confirmed offshore of Shadow Moses Island. It joined an E-3C AWACS that had already and suddenly been deployed to the area. With none other than Jim Houseman, that was his name, not Donald Anderson. Jim Houseman, the National Security Advisor, aboard. 16 hours later, 6 F-117 Nighthawks with a full payload took off from the Galena AFB for Alaska, the Galena Air Force Base, for Alaska. Various theories were placed into circulation by the media at the time. Some journalists insisted it had been a foiled invasion attempt by a foreign state. Others suspected a coup d'etat by a part of the US military. I myself wrote an opinion piece for a magazine explaining that Shadow Moses was the Ellis Island for the Greys. What the hell does that mean? This diminutive Grey race is, after all, the most famous of our alien neighbors, notorious for having secret bases all over planet Earth. Jesus Christ. This guy is no fucking journalist. He's a goddamn nutjob. But according to this file, we had all been off our marks. What had instead unfolded on Shadow Moses was the most major terrorist incident in history. An apocalyptic scenario born out of a government-developed Superman project and a doomsday weapon of the same origin. On that fateful day, the nuclear weapons disposal plant on Shadow Moses had suddenly been seized by an irregular operations squad called Foxhound, aided by a group of next-generation super soldiers. And what they threatened was no less than a nuclear strike against the mainland United States. So how is it that we're still alive? Apparently, we have a man known only as Solid Snake and his solitary infiltration of the disposal facility to thank for it. Believe it or not, this is only the tip of the iceberg as far as the Shadow Moses incident is concerned. The disc contains many more horrifying facts, such as a major government conspiracy, a classified weapon described as a walking nuclear-capable tank, and advanced genetic manipulation projects. Many of these hidden dealings were discovered by Solid Snake as he carried out his mission, and it is now my job is to relate these facts to you, the readers. Okay, there's kind of a sort of a typo, sort of just whatever there. It's not written correctly there. But is it still a little too premature to do so? The content of the disc may, after all, be nothing more than fiction, or even a delusion. After all, who exactly is this Nastasha Romanenko? Let's just be a whole hit piece just to discredit her so that nobody believes her story about what actually happened. In search of Nastasha Romanenko. A quick search of the web turned up a few illuminating facts about this elusive writer. Nastasha Romanenko was at one point with the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. At the time of the Shadow Moses incident, she appears to have been a freelance military analyst. Having already resigned from the agency, nuclear and weapons technology would certainly be right up her alley. And in the disc, she states that she took part in Solid Snake's mission support. Her exact role was as a member of NEST, Nuclear Emergency Search Team, providing field expertise via the radio. Her intimate involvement in the mission gives her a complete and clear grasp of the facts surrounding the case despite the government's successful cover-up. A look at Romanenko's curriculum vitae? I've never seen that word before. I don't know if that's how you say it. and body of papers makes her anti-nuclear stance more than obvious. That, along with all the other facts about this person, suggests that unless she suffered a sudden chemical imbalance, or is plotting a second career as a Hollywood screenwriter, Nastasha Romanenko does not indulge in expounding conspiracy theories for its own sake. All very interesting. So, where is Nastasha Romanenko now? I decided to give Global Elements Incorporated, the book's publisher, a call. Below is a complete transcript of the conversation. Me? Hello? Listen, you leftover carnival prize. What do you know about a woman named Nastasha Romanenko? This guy's very nice, isn't he? When he first talks to someone he's never met before, he's very nice, isn't he? Or even the college student that's helped him before. He's what a nice guy. Literally starting a phone call by calling him a leftover carnival prize? This guy's a fucking douchebag. And then whoever it was responded with, "Hey, your village called. They want their idiot back. And watch your language, freak." Like, clearly they're hiding something. Why else the abrupt response and the hasty hang-up? Gee, I wonder why. I mean, I don't know about you, but like, anybody who doesn't hang up rapidly on someone who talks to them that way, I don't know. That would be even weirder to me. I was on the trail of something important. Something dangerous. If the content of the disc was true, this Nastasha Romanenko was definitely the woman who knew too much. Her life would be in danger, and she must either have gone to ground or was already dead. That brief telephone conversation spoke volumes. There was a contract out on her life. If this was the price... That's what you got out of that phone call? I just heard somebody telling you to fuck off because you insulted them the moment he answered the fucking phone on you. If this was the price of speaking the truth as described in that disc, the picture was complete. But was everything she wrote really true? I went back to my apartment and packed a bag. I was headed for Shadow Moses, the coldest place. I took a plane out to the northernmost domestic airport and went to see my cousin John D. John D is a hardcore Alaskan and a big-eyed tuna fisherman. When I asked him to drop me off at Shadow Moses Island during one of his trips out to sea, he turned pale and a nervous tick started up at the corner of his eye. I wonder why. Shadow Moses? Are you nuts? All the other guys say the place is crawling with the military. If you get even close to the shore, they shine these huge searchlights in your face, and some of my buddies even got interrogated once. I felt the sudden chill of fear, along with the certainty that I was on the right track. You're a wuss, you know that? Try being abducted by a UFO, that'll teach you what's really scary. I got a family, you know. I'm not about to go messing around with a man. Is this Barry Burton in disguise? I have a family. Okay, you get me as close as you can then. I'll swim the rest of the way. Swim? You're gonna turn into frozen tuna treat. Don't worry about that. I have an idea. We sailed out for Shadow Moses Island that day. A trip to Shadow Moses. It was colder than the dairy section and the boat pitched like a subway derailment on caffeine. I shook constantly from the cold, retched peanut butter into the sea, then downed some more to keep warm. A few days passed in this pleasant fashion until John D, drawing lines on his charts, turned to me. I'm sorry, man, but this is as far as I can go. If you really want to do this thing, you're going to have to find your own way. There were at least 20 miles to Shadow Moses according to the chart, but John D was already a blubbering wreck and I didn't have the heart to strong-arm him. I steeled my nerves. It's okay. Help me get ready. The plan was brilliant. I'd gutted a super-sized tuna and stuffed some inflated balloons inside, along with a small oil lamp to keep the interior toasty. The fuck is he going to do? I would cover the length of my body with the fish and dog paddle my way to the island. Any oxygen shortage would quickly be remedied thanks to the balloon, and my landing would appear to be nothing more than a large dead fish swept ashore. All I had to do was slip out of the tuna undetected and investigate the hell out of the place. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, nothing could possibly go wrong with a plan like that. Holy shit, how is this guy alive? How did this guy survive to write this fucking book? I bore the fishy stink out of the tuna skin with proper journalistic aplomb and walked to the edge of the ship's deck. The Arctic wind was numbing even through the wetsuit, but I bade John D a hearty farewell and jumped into the sea. But right then, disaster struck. Actually, it was the tuna spine. Its bony mass conked me hard on the back of my head from the force of the landing. I tried to right myself, but I was jammed tight against the balloons. The tuna started to sink rapidly, and I kicked my legs wildly as about a gallon of seawater rushed into my lungs. What did you think was going to happen, dude? To add insult to injury, the lamp fell over, shedding its cover. I could feel the heat of the exposed flame dangerously close to my face. and smell the singed hair. This is why I hate traveling. You usually have travel experiences like this? This is normal for you? But after what felt like hours, I found myself ashore on Shadow Moses Island. Oh great, somehow he fucking made it. Too bad. Let's take a moment here to review what happened on the island on that fateful day. Romanenko's disc provides a complete answer. Shadow Moses was no ordinary weapons disposal facility, but served as a secret military training ground, among other things. On that day, the Wetworks Commando unit known as Foxhound and the Next Generation Special Forces Group were conducting joint exercises. Foxhound is an irregular squad of elite soldiers equipped and armed to the teeth with the latest technology. They were long-time and strictly behind-the-scenes players throughout recent history, engaging in sabotage, selective assassinations, and other covert military operations. Wherever the United States could not officially intervene, whether it was a civil war, regional unrest, or other types of low-intensity conflict, Foxhound was there. It's unlikely, however, that an average citizen has ever heard of them before. These commandos remain a top-secret government project. And then there's the Next Generation Special Forces Unit. This is a cutting-edge anti-terrorist force newly organized to cope with terrorist incidents specifically involving weapons of mass destruction typified in nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. They draw heavily from former mercenary ranks and are on a diet of rigorous VR training guided by the Force 21 concept. The result is combat capability, which is rumored to surpass even those of the Delta Force and Dev Group, formerly known as SEAL Team 6. SEAL Team 6 has some prestige, so yeah, that would be a pretty big deal if that were true, sure. Most frightening of all, these soldiers have supposedly been manipulated at the genetic level to increase their combat performance. They were the purebreds among the dogs of war, and they turned on their masters with a surprising demand. Having seized the civilians that were on hand, they demanded that the government turn over to them the body of Foxhound's founder and combat genius, the so-called Big Boss. The government had 24 hours to comply, or a nuclear strike would be initiated. But what would motivate them to make such a demand? And how did they intend to make good their threat of a nuclear launch? With these questions still unanswered, the government decided on a seemingly reckless course of action. For this daunting task of stopping a nuclear strike and freeing the hostages from the clutches of these ultimate soldiers, they sent in a single man. His name was Solid Snake, no other than a former member of the now renegade Foxhound, and a legend among mercenaries for single-handedly bringing down the fortress cities of Outer Heaven and Zanzibar Land. Yeah, this is true. Your reaction is probably one of incredulity. Just one guy? You may wonder. They decided to gamble the future of the entire world on a single mercenary? I wholeheartedly agree with the sentiment, but there is more to this mission than meets the eye, as I was later to discover. Because they didn't do that. They gambled it on a fucking prototype bioweapon that they injected into his bloodstream, actually. But anyway, Solid Snake's remote support team. Snake was delivered to the island by USS Discovery, an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine. He may have been the lone field operative, but there was a distinguished mission control team in contact with him by radio. The overall control of the mission rested with Colonel Roy Campbell aboard the USS Discovery. As a former commander of Foxhound and Snake's CO during the 1999 Zanzibar Land standoff, he was forcibly called out from retirement to deal with this latest crisis. Also aboard the Discovery was Dr. Naomi Hunter, a genetic engineering expert with the commercial biotech firm ATGC Inc. She was in charge of Foxhound's gene manipulation program. Mei Ling, the architect of the mission's state-of-the-art radar and communication systems, was the third team member. Apparently something of an engineering wonderkind, she developed this next-generation communication technology while still a student at MIT. At the time of the mission, she may have still been in her teens. Mei Ling? Oh, okay, yeah, I guess so. Did they say how old she was? Because that also shocked me too when I saw it. I was like, wait, she was still a teenager? What the fuck? McDonnell Miller, a former Foxhound survival instructor, was the only land-bound member of the mission control team. Unlike the other four, Miller was working out of his home in Alaska at his only quest. Lastly, Nastasha Romanenko, the author of In the Darkness of Shadow Moses, rounded out the team as an expert on nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction. We're approaching the halfway point. What terrorist acts were committed here? The hostages and what they tell us. The first task faced by Solid Snake upon his infiltration of Shadow Moses Island was the rescue of the hostages. 2 of the captives in particular were considered top priority, but neither survived the mission. Though Snake successfully freed both men, they died suddenly in an identical manner. At the time, the mission control team tentatively attributed the deaths to heart attacks, a diagnosis that was to prove starkly incorrect. Excuse me. The first hostage was Donald Anderson, the head of DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, the research and development body of the U.S. Department of Defense. The organization is responsible for planning and overseeing the development of new weapons technology. Yes, I think everything you just said before that makes that pretty clear. The other VIP hostage, Kenneth Baker, was the president of ArmsTech, one of the largest and most powerful defense subcontractors in the country. An overseer of the U.S.'s war technology and a powerful arms producer don't just happen to meet in an out-of-the-way military outpost. And that's true. No one reading this account can fail to realize that these two had no business in a nuclear weapons disposal plant. And since neither Anderson nor Baker was in the habit of enjoying winter picnics, Romanenko's assertion that there was a new weapon secretly being developed on the island rings all the more true. According to her, there was indeed such a weapon, and it was close enough to completion to warrant a field test. But what exactly was this new weapon? The mother of all weapons. Metal Gear. I'm not sure it's a term that many of you have heard. I know it only as a kind of a journalistic urban legend while I was still a beat reporter. It was a phantom bipedal tank that moved with unprecedented speed across difficult terrain such as mountains, desert, and swamps, firing nuclear warheads from locations that were previously impossible. Once this weapon rolled off the assembly line, nuclear strikes could be made from almost any adverse terrain, and the tactical nuclear map for the whole world would be rewritten. Yeah. This nuclear-capable bipedal tank is said to have lurked in the wings of both Outer Heaven of South Africa and Zanzibar Land in Central Asia. One theory holds that the development had progressed to a working prototype stage, but the weapon never materialized on the world arms stage. In a strange coincidence or a causal connection, it was none other than Solid Snake who saved the world from the threat of Metal Gear during both incidents. But history does indeed repeat itself, and the specter of Metal Gear rose once again, in the state-of-the-art weapons development program on Shadow Moses Island. When I reached this point in the narrative, I suddenly checked myself. Wasn't Metal Gear's time effectively over? Ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union late last century, the idea of mutual assured destruction in the arms race to maintain this dangerous status quo had been fading into obsolescence. The START II treaty signed by both superpowers had already started to chip away at the nuclear stockpile even back then. In fact, the disposal facility at Shadow Moses had been built to disarm and temporarily store many of these same warheads. With the very idea of nuclear weapons under serious scrutiny, why would the military invest in the development of a nuclear-capable tank? Or was there something more to this weapon? The nature of the beast. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Metal Gear Rex, the newest of its kind. Almost 45 feet in height, equipped with Vulcan cannons and laser array and shielded by a cutting-edge composite armor, rendering the unit practically impervious to even heat, high-explosive anti-tank warheads. And I haven't even gotten to the truly scary part of this thing. The crown jewel of this Shadow Moses Metal Gear was its railgun technology. The gun was designed to fire nuclear warheads clear of the atmosphere where they would automatically align themselves to the target and ride the optimal trajectory back down to Earth. So what, you may think? There's a big fat missile flying in from the sky. Who cares where it came from? Just shoot the damn thing down. But here's the catch. You won't be able to find any of Rex's warheads, let alone shoot them down. Don't believe me? The facts bear me out. Normally, ballistic missiles go through 4 phases from launch to impact. The first is the boost phase, which consists of the time between the missile's launch and the point at which it leaves the atmosphere and exhausts its supply of rocket propellant. Following the burnout, the rocket enters the post-boost phase that concludes with the separation of the re-entry vehicle that contains the warhead. Okay. The third stage is the mine course phase, in which the re-entry vehicle separates and achieves a controlled descent back into the atmosphere. You know what's funny is I just saw a Fear the Walking Dead episode that shows this whole process. Spoiler alert. But don't worry, I won't tell you what season or anything. The warhead's re-entry into the atmosphere and its arrival at the target mark the fourth and terminal phase. Okay, yeah. Current missile defense systems are alerted to incoming ballistic missiles by detecting the rocket burn during the missile's boost stage when it's going up and out of the atmosphere. However, Metal Gear's missile technology employs a railgun rather than conventional rocket propulsion to achieve boost stage acceleration. As a result, there is nothing for existing missile defense systems to detect. The railgun's effectiveness is nothing short of amazing, with a range of over 3,000 miles. I mean, the thing was pretty big. On its fucking shoulder. Rivaling that of mid-range ballistic missiles. It reliably homes in within 170 feet of the target 50% of the time, placing it in the same class as high-end ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, for those who don't know. The ability of a Metal Gear to conquer virtually all terrain means that the railgun can launch a stealthy nuclear strike from almost any spot on the globe. This invisible attack would make it impossible for anyone to pinpoint the origin of a given missile, even in the event of a strike. Without a clear aggressor to retaliate against, the concept of mutual assured destruction falls apart. Without the fear of MAD, mutually assured destruction, the existing rules of nuclear non-engagement would no longer apply. It also wouldn't matter if the whole world knew that a nuclear missile would be launched from Shadow Moses Island. The missile defense system was helpless against the new breed of ballistic missiles. This was exactly what the terrorists counted on in unleashing Metal Gear Rex and its all-powerful nuclear weapon against the world. It is pretty ingenious, isn't it? The way this guy just described it so succinctly, compared to the way they were describing it in the previous game, really hits the point home that a weapon like this would be incredibly dangerous. And even that is an understatement. What I finally saw inside the fortress. Anyway, I trudged through the cave, sweating under the weight of my trusty tuna. Soon, the rocks gave way to smooth walls and a row of bright lights. I had finally arrived. This was no doubt the cradle of insurrection, that military facility which Solid Snake so brilliantly penetrated, the eye of the storm that threatened to engulf the world. Fortunately, there was not a soul to be seen. I could, however, hear a faint cry amidst the whistle of the wind. "Gary, help me!" I couldn't believe my ears. How could anyone on a remote island that I'd never visited know my name? I took a good, cautious look around and saw a familiar figure among the steel pillars in the corner. It was John D. My cousin, who'd so carelessly pitched me overboard into the sub-zero water only a few hours ago, was now sitting on the ground, tied to a post. What had happened? "Help, Gary!" I trotted over to where he was calling pathetically, the tuna heavy on my back. He smiled weakly when he saw me. "What the hell happened to you, John D?" I asked, crouching down next to him. "I don't know. Right after I let you off, this black helicopter came around." "A helicopter?" "Yeah, a kind of squarish black one. The next thing I know, I'm tied up here." "Gary, why are you still weighing that fish?" Was there more to this as I'd suspected? Who was responsible? The military? Or that mysterious group mentioned in the disc? The one whose authority outstrips even that of the President of the United States? See, that's actually kind of new. Like, that's something that wasn't mentioned in the previous game. But of course, there's some strong hints that Ocelot and maybe the President himself know about this group because of the things that happen. But, yeah, that's kind of new right there. This whole mysterious group that outstrips the authority of the President and all that stuff. My thoughts were interrupted by a sudden gunfire. I instinctively pulled the tuna over me again. "Gary, you gotta help me. Untie me, will you?" Where was the shooter? The bullets were wildly ricocheting off the posts, making it impossible for me to pinpoint the origin. If I stayed put, I was dead meat. What should be my next course of action? "Untie me, man! Gary! Don't call me Gary! I'm just a tuna!" I started to run. Right, a tuna running on land. Great cover, dude. I started to run, dodging bullets and sprinting up the stairs. I was unstoppable, speeding away like a gazelle in a large fish skin. Farewell, Cousin John D. There are responsibilities greater than your safety that I must shoulder. Mine is a high and lonely path. What an asshole. He just left his cousin to die and didn't give a shit, because he justifies it by saying he has some greater purpose in life. Alright. Even though he's the one who got his cousin into this mess. Solid Snake versus the Army of Darkness. Oh wow, an Evil Dead reference. By the way, I only know that that's an Evil Dead reference just because... Well, I think it's supposed to be. Unless that movie's referencing something else. I don't know. I only recently discovered that because of that Evil Dead game that came out and some movie fanatics who talked about it, and it was on a Twitch stream I heard, so... Alright, so let's take this moment to review Solid Snake's footsteps. The nuclear weapons disposal facility that he had infiltrated was crawling with terrorists, and engaging the enemy was unavoidable. This was a battlefield, no mistake about it. Snake's progress had been impeded at every step by the patrolling squads of super-genome soldiers, and such formidable foxhounds as Psychomantis, the master of psychokinesis and mind-reading, a chameleon-like decoy octopus, the chain-gun-wielding giant Vulcan raven, and Sniper Wolf, one of the best marksmen in history. The following is a profile of individuals whose involvement with the government conspiracy seems to be the most intimate. The information should help make the terrifying truth about this case more clear. Revolver Ocelot, an ex-Spetsnaz also known as Shalashashka. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, he found lucrative contracts as a mercenary in conflict-ridden regions throughout the world. His activities led to his recruitment by the US government and his entry into Foxhound. As his codename indicates, he is a brilliant marksman whose preferred weapon is a revolver. Ocelot challenged Snake when he came looking for Kenneth Baker, the president of Armstag Inc. But the battle never reached the conclusion Ocelot wanted due to the sudden intrusion of the stealth camouflage-clad cyborg ninja. The ninja's sword cut a deadly arc right through Ocelot's right arm, and Ocelot retreated in agony. The Russian sharpshooter also served as a liaison between his terrorist band and a Russian militia led by the renegade Colonel Gerlukovich. According to Foxhound leader Liquid Snake's master plan, the Russian militia would join them on Shadow Moses after the nuclear strike had been launched. They would then commence an all-out assault on the rest of the world from their safe retreat on the island. Yeah. That was it, definitely. With nuclear missiles that could neither be detected nor defended against, over 1,000 first-class Russian soldiers, next-generation genome commandos, and the combat skill and tactical cunning of Foxhound, this new army's objective was nothing short of World War III. Pretty much. It was basically a recreation of Big Boss's Outer Heaven in Zanzibar Land, all over again. Liquid Snake definitely followed in his father's footsteps quite well. The ninja, the mystery figure equipped with a reinforced exoskeleton and stealth camouflage, confounded Snake as well as the terrorists with his superhuman strength and agility. His interest seems not to have been what was happening within the facility. Evidence suggests that he was there solely to engage Snake in battle. It was through such an encounter that Snake realized the identity of the ninja. His name had been Gray Fox, and he was supposed to have been killed by Snake, his best friend. This may seem surprising, but the dead coming back to life is a fairly routine occurrence. There are examples throughout the world to prove the fact. When a Roland Grace's grave was relocated in 1952, there were deep gouge marks discovered on the inside of the Hungarian farmer's casket lid. It looked as though the dying man had tried to claw his way out of the coffin. On a brighter note, a Japanese man called Jin Emin Natakama walked out of a stalactite cave in 1914, a full 10 years after he had gone missing while exploring the same cave. Whoa! His family was doubly astonished to discover that he had apparently not aged a day since they last saw him. All this makes complete sense to me, and it should to you as well in a moment. But he traveled through time in the cave and came back out 10 years later. 2 words. Pyramid power. I have no doubt that Gray Fox was forced to undergo the same revival process by military scientists in the course of their horrific genetic experiments. Pyramid power? Well, what is that referring to? You're not going to elaborate on that? Liquid Snake, I know exactly what you are thinking as you hear the name of the man who led the Shadow Moses uprising, and my answer is yes. Solid Snake, our hero, and Liquid Snake are none other than twin brothers. They are not, however, twins in the usual sense. This is yet another manifestation of the US military's dangerous love affair with genetic engineering. The 2 snakes are fighting machines created through the so-called project Les Enfants Terribles. The rumors that the government is attempting mass production of super soldiers are numerous and persistent. Just the other day, I came across something called D-People-EO. Yeah, D-People-EO. A humanoid combat android, or droid. Development on the outer shell had gone off without a hitch, but the unit had to have a human being inside to function, which decreased its utility somewhat. The military finally realized the fact late in the game and pulled the plug. There was also a plan to use a well-known psychokinetics DNA material to breed an army of gifted soldiers. Unfortunately, someone pointed out that there is indeed no spoon. Nice Matrix reference. At least not in a normal combat situation. So yeah, this game is obviously going to take inspiration from the Matrix as well. As proven by that line, there is no spoon. Solid and Liquid Snakes, however, were successfully created from their father, Big Boss's genetic material. They were literally born to be extraordinary soldiers. It was no surprise that when they finally met, the result would be a titanic confrontation. What I saw on the roof. I hauled myself and Tuna up the steps, dodging the invisible sniper. The spiral staircase seemed to go on forever. Just as I was about to give up the climb, I saw the exit to the roof. I pulled open the door and lurched into the faintly lit gloom. A sub-zero wind felt soothing on my overworked body. I laid the tuna down and sat next to it, trying to catch my breath. The enemy may pursue me even here, but I had nothing left in me to run with. I pulled out my hip flask of peanut butter and bourbon and took a long swig. It's an interesting combination. Wonder what that tastes like. The fiery liquid slid down my throat, hot and thick. Peanut butter is my Waterloo. When I was a kid, I was a wuss who couldn't eat peanut butter like other red-blooded children. One day I decided to confront this weakness of mine and put myself on a peanut butter overload. Anything I put in my mouth had to have peanut butter on it. I piled the stuff on everything from chili dogs without onions, my favorite dish, to spearmint gum to my first girlfriend's lips. How did she agree to that? The inevitable result was that I came to hate peanut butter. If I didn't much like it before, I now loathed it with abandon. If I could gather the entire world's supply of peanut butter and dump it in the Bermuda Triangle, I would. As it is, all I can do is eat as much of the stuff as I can. Peanut butter, I will always hate you. How does that song go? And I will always hate you, you. No, that's not it. Will always... It must be another song I'm thinking of. I can't remember. Snow is starting to coat my shoes. What was my tuna? Oh, there it is, right next to me. Bright light in my eye. Now I remember what day it is. June 24th, the anniversary of my UFO abduction. Why am I so sleepy? And what is that sound? It was a chopper. A squarish black one, and it was coming closer. The hell is this fool going on about, man? That whole part about the peanut butter was so pointless and didn't need to be part of this book. Jesus Christ. He's like worse than me with rambling about irrelevant shit. Oh shit, we're near the end. See, I got so lost in the book anyway. I was so entertained by it, I didn't realize we're already at page 102. Foxdie, the secret assassination virus. If you recall, I wrote that the two hostages, the DARPA chief Donald Anderson and ArmsTech president Kenneth Baker, died of a heart attack while they were being rescued by Solid Snake. The actual cause of their death, however, was a specially engineered assassination virus called Foxdie. Foxdie is a retrovirus that kills only a select people. Its development was passed on to Naomi Hunter from her predecessor. Once Foxdie finds its way into its target system, the person dies almost immediately. It's practically a viral equivalent of spontaneous human combustion. Yeah, actually. That's true. That's a good way to put it. Dr. Hunter had injected Solid Snake with his virus, and as he unwittingly made contact with his targets one by one, they fell prey to the retrovirus's power. That's the unwanted gift that Snake was referring to when he talked to Otacon at the beginning of this game, by the way. He said, I'm not getting any more unwanted gifts, the Foxdie. But the decision to infect Snake was not hers. That order, in fact, came directly from the Pentagon. The Defense Department's goal, the true objective of the DoD, was to selectively assassinate the perpetrators of the terrorist uprising. All Snake had to do was to come into contact with the targets. The mission objectives he was actually given, namely to stop the nuclear launch and rescue the hostages, were nothing more than a smokescreen. By simply sending Snake in as a disease vector, the Pentagon stood to reclaim their expensive investments, Metal Gear and the bodies of the Genome soldiers, with little risk of damage. The Pentagon also believed that Foxdie would successfully cover up the incident by the virtue of its lethality. However, Naomi Hunter's re-engineering of the virus cast grave doubts on the reliability of Foxdie itself. Even though the nature of her manipulation was unknown, the Pentagon decided to take extreme measures to counteract this development. My mouth is drying out. I need some water. I'm narrating a book that's over 100 pages. Cut me some slack here. I mean, I'm narrating it all in one go, I should say. The bomber on the horizon. Alarmed by the news of Dr. Hunter's tampering, the then Defense Secretary Jim Houseman personally took over as the mission's commander and headed for Shadow Moses on an AWACS. Around the same time, a bomber took off from a base in Galena, Alaska, carrying a payload of surface-piercing B-6113 tactical missiles. The Defense Secretary had decided on a more direct approach to cover-up, fighting nuke with nuke. It was a rationale that smacked of a return to the arms race, and Snake was furious. He had already succeeded in destroying Metal Gear Rex, and the terrorist incident was over for all intents and purposes. Was a nuclear airstrike to be his prize for accomplishing all this? As it turned out, the airstrike never happened. Somebody had countermanded Jim Houseman's orders. You may think that the only person with the authority to override the orders of the Secretary of Defense was his Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States. But like most things in this account, the truth is far from obvious. The hand that stopped the nuclear strike was that of a shadowy secret society. Okay, please don't tell me it's snake-headed aliens, because I feel like that's where this guy's going to take this, being the nutjob that he is. But what kind of a group is it whose power outstrips even that of the American presidency? Oh good, one page with one word only. The face of the enemy. When I came to, I was sitting in a weather station cabin with a burlap sack on my head and my hands tied behind my back. So now we're at the point in time where the hook of the book at the very beginning starts, right? The part that tries to hook you in, where he's being tortured or interrogated or whatever. So this is the way it ends, I thought dimly. I haul myself all the way out to this pimple on the Arctic and die at the hands of an invisible executioner without finding out a thing. One of my captors moved in closer and started to rummage through my inside chest pocket. I cursed inwardly. This was where I carried Nastasha Romanenko's disc, the entire account of the Shadow Moses incident. My policy is the best way to ensure that something doesn't get stolen is to have it with you at all times. Clearly, I needed to reevaluate that one. I mean, yeah, if you get if you get abducted, then it'll get stolen from you regardless. The man easily found and seized the disc. What is this? He demanded. Whatever it is, it's worth more than you. I responded with as much menace and dignity as the burlap on my head allowed. Well, well, that is something. What followed was both highly tedious and painful, and nothing of great significance was said until that electrifying statement. We have the disc back. We've now come full circle since the start of my account, and caught up to the point where it originated. It was unclear how the disc had gotten to Max Smithson at Mega Surprise, but my captor's words indicated that the disc had originally belonged to them. Either that, or they were the ones who wanted it the most urgently. I took my courage in my hands and opened the dialogue with them. A quick thought. I wonder if this disc they're fighting over here might have something to do with the hard copy of Mei Ling's data that Colonel Campbell made as an insurance policy to keep them all alive after they all presumably got a price on their heads, like we heard Otacon tell Snake when we started the game, right? Because the government obviously still wants them all dead for knowing the truth about what happened in Shadow Moses. They don't want the truth ever getting out. Even though Metal Gear Rex's combat data has since been leaked on the black market. But this book may have been written before that. And even then, even if that happened, they'd still want them dead anyway. The government would still want them dead, so. Let's see, what was that? Open down. Okay, here. Yo, you guys happen to be that secret society whose power outstrips even that of the American presidency? Answer me, you artificial coloring on a cheap drugstore candy cane. This guy has some very interesting insults, doesn't he? This had the exact effect I'd hoped for, namely to send them into a violent fit of rage. I must have hit pretty close to home. The contents of the disc were as good as verified. There was indeed the secret society whose power outstripped even that of the American presidency. In my delight, I hardly paid attention to the obscenities that were being screamed at me, nor to the distinct sound of a gun being pulled out of its holster. I'm sorry, this guy is just... Yeah, I like how he reaches his conclusions so quickly with such little evidence. Okay, it was then that the cabin suddenly erupted into controlled chaos. It seemed only seconds from the time the window was smashed in to the moment I realized that my captors had been decimated and I was alone as my savior. Who was this human whirlwind? I was ready to lose my lunch from the curiosity and the terror. I could taste the peanut butter in my mouth. I could hear the enigma walk up to me and lift the burlap sack off my head. I concentrated on the hammering of my heart for a moment, then slowly looked up. There was nobody there. I could see nothing, sense nothing. But someone was untying the ropes biting into my wrists. Invisible hands placed themselves on either side of my head in a strange parody of a coronation. They deftly removed the bandana I had earlier fashioned into a clumsy bandage for my bruised head. The faded piece of cloth was not my own, but a flotsam found on the beach. Really? I reached for the unseen figure with my shaking hands, but with one quick flick of the bandana, it was gone. But there were more surprises to come. As I gingerly moved my stiff body, I felt an unfamiliar bulk against my chest, and discovered the precious optical disc miraculously recovered. Not only that, but there were enough backup copies to fill me with awe and pop the stitches on my flimsy pocket. I thought of my mysterious savior. possessed of superhuman fighting ability, invisible, and capable of burning discs in an instant. There was only one possible explanation. He had to be an alien, probably the little gray kind.
What the fuck?
Life after Shadow Moses. And so I came in from the cold to my hole of an apartment in New York, my trusty tuna beside me. The landlord mentioned that my neighbor, the starving student, had gone missing recently. It could be that I was nosing around the wrong information from his machine. If I ever see him alive again, I should apologize. I am currently banging out this manuscript on an antique typewriter. This is the truth as described on the optical disc and as elaborated and verified by my own experiences on that fearsome island. I like I didn't even write details of how I got back home from there. As this account draws to a close, my thoughts dwell more and more on Nastasha Romanenko, the woman who risked everything by recording the facts of the incident onto this disc. I think it was her way of giving voice to the victims of this mission. The casualties of nuclear weapons throughout modern history, which she was obviously one herself, her and her parents. We remember that from that Codec call with her. And to all the lives disrupted and damaged by an elaborate government conspiracy. Her will was passed on to a counterculture journalist in New York City. That's me. And the truth is now out there for all to see, just as she dreamed. Readers, the responsibility to disseminate the facts of the Shadow Moses incident is now yours. What will you risk to know the truth? Well, yeah, she probably did want the truth out there, but having the truth be leaked by a completely incredulous conspiracy alien-believing nutjob like this guy just kind of destroys the whole thing, and I think that was the point. I think everything we just read was nothing but a load of bullshit, fabricated by insiders in the government trying to discredit Nastasha Romanenko. I think this entire account was just that. We just read a whole lot of horse shit from a guy that... I mean, come on. How can he be a journalist working for any kind of magazine of any kind and be that crazy? Like, the shit he was... Believing in aliens. The tuna thing. Using a tuna to get into Shadow Moses. Like, obviously none of this happened. This is clearly just part of a smear campaign to try and discredit Nastasha's story about what actually happened, the actual truth. Alright, let's see what the publisher has to say. Publishers afterward. This non-fiction work was based on the factual account written by Nastasha Romanenko, a military analyst who allegedly took part in a secret mission to counter a terrorist incident on Alaska's Shadow Moses Island. Her account was published in its original, unabridged form as In the Darkness of Shadow Moses after the successful publication of this volume. So they published this first and then that. Gary McGolden, the author, is a journalist and a non-fiction writer who is best known for his past bestseller, The Telekinetic Powers of the Loch Ness Monster, the True Energy Source of UFOs. That's the same book? The details of McGolden's adventures on Shadow Moses remain uncorroborated, but there are serious doubts as to his tuna-aided landing on the island. Yeah, obviously. There is, in fact, ample evidence that he was swept out to another small island several miles south of Shadow Moses and failed to realize that fact. McGolden has seemingly vanished into thin air following his manuscript's arrival at our humble offices. While this has been a source of great pleasure to our accounting department, I sincerely... because they don't have to pay him now, right? I sincerely hope that this notoriously fickle but talented writer is hard at work on a follow-up to this volume. No, I think he's probably 6 feet under, or buried 6 feet under at this point, or rotting away at the bottom of the Hudson River. It's, this whole thing was in New York, right? Though certain aspects of the book require further fact-checking, this alone should not dissuade you of the veracity of many of its main assertions, nor should you dismiss the contents of Nastasha Romanenko's disc outright. Instead, readers should approach this account with an open mind and a sense of adventure, much as Gary McGolden did when he first received the disc in the mail. I should note, however, that Gary was mistaken about one thing. I never mailed him that disc. Max Smithson, Editor-in-Chief, Mega Surprise Magazine. The plot thickens, eh? I never mailed him that disc. Dun dun dun.
What? What the fuck?
There you go. So, yeah, either this whole thing is, like I said, just a smear campaign to try and discredit Nastasia's factual story by association with this nutjob journalist, quote unquote journalist. Or, everything he said really happened, but he's still an idiot. But because he got so close to the truth, they made him disappear afterwards. Because he's gone missing. And there probably won't be a follow-up volume if that's true. He's fucked. What's next? In the Darkness of Shadow Moses, the unofficial truth. So this is Nastasia's book, or account, or whatever, that was found on the optical disc that this guy, the writer of this thing, released, basically. And like the ending of this one said, the ending of this account, this book, or whatever, it said that they released Nastasia's account in the Darkness of Shadow Moses, unabridged, completely like just her point of story, no other bullshit like this was. They just released her story right after they published this volume. That's why when you finish reading this, the game now unlocks this for you to read. It's like we're going through the actual timeline of how they released this to the public, basically. So how many pages is this? Because I might have to save this one for next stream, since we're getting close to 2 hours. Let's see. In the Darkness of Shadow Moses, the unofficial truth. This is 324 pages. This is Nastasia Romanenko's book. Yeah, we're gonna have to save this for next time, because my voice is shot from reading that other one. 324 pages. This one's gonna be a while. I should put on some reading music for this one. We have about 15 minutes before the 2-hour mark. I'll try to get through some of it. But in order to save my voice, I am going to be a little quieter, so I'm going to get closer to the microphone. And I should put on some quiet reading music, but I gotta think of something that's not DMCA. Something to spice it up a little rather than the dead silence in my voice. Let me see what I can think of real quick. And if not, then like I said, I'll just save it for next stream. I didn't expect the recaps to be so thorough, I gotta say. For what happened in the first MGS. This is crazy. What do I got? I'm trying to think of a song I can play on stream. So there's one in my mind, but I don't know what it's titled. I'm gonna have to look it up after the stream. But I think I have one that's it's like a very quiet beat that I think goes pretty well with this. Would go pretty well with this type of story we're about to read. So, yeah, we'll do that. I'll figure it out after this stream, and then for next stream, we'll do a little story time reading with that little music that I'm thinking of, if I can find it. I should be able to, though. Let's see. As for right now, on my soundboard, I got nothing that would work for this. Yeah, this ain't gonna work. I haven't used that in a while. But no, I got nothing. So we'll just have to read this first little bit in silence. Just for like a few minutes, and then wherever we drop, wherever we get to by the time the 2-hour mark hits, we'll start there next time. And I'll actually have some music prepared. Some quiet reading music prepared. Alright, so I dedicate this book to the casualties of Shadow Moses, as well as to all those who suffered the tyranny of the nuclear weapons. And to Richard Ames. Oh. Nastasia Romanenko. Prologue. Shadow Moses Island. XXXXN XXXXW. Even the local fishermen rarely venture to this outcropping of land. Oh, I see they blocked out the coordinates. Even the local fishermen ventured to this outcropping of land, yet the incident of all incidents took place on this remote isle, north of Alaska's Fox Islands. A number of confirmed facts undermine the U.S. government's denial of the entire affair. Among those are the sudden appearance of the Ohio-class nuclear submarine USS Discovery off Shadow Moses, far away from its designated position, and an official record that shows that a squadron of 6 fully armed F-117 Nighthawks departed from Galena Air Force Base for Alaska a scant 16 hours later. In another possibly related event, an E-3C AWACS on emergency deployment to the Alaska area is said to have had none other than the and the then National Security Advisor Jim Houseman as its onboard VIP. What exactly happened on Shadow Moses? There was no lack of rumors to account for this series of unusual military activities. An armed incursion, a coup attempt by a branch of the military, and other theories made its way to the public table. I can state unequivocally that none of them came close to the truth. What actually took place was the single greatest terrorist incident in modern history. It was an act of political violence on a scale the world had never seen. A blow that threatened to send the Damocles sword of nuclear warfare into a freefall. Most significant of all, the attack was stemmed from several so-called black projects, which the US government had been conducting in top secret, away from public scrutiny. I have in my hand 2 optical discs. One contains the entire record of events that took place on Shadow Moses Island that fateful day. The takeover of a nuclear weapons disposal plant by an armed group. Other key points of this incredible record are the identification of the perpetrators as the government's own genetically enhanced next-generation commandos and a covert special forces squad, Foxhound, with a long dark history of secret intervention. The existence of one Metal Gear Rex, a bipedal nuclear-capable tank, whose development was one of the most classified projects of all time. The discovery of a massive government conspiracy. The activities of a former Foxhound operative who single-handedly took on this daunting situation and averted the crisis. A man who is known only by his codename, Solid Snake. The other remaining disc holds the details of Project Foxdie, a massive cover-up which the US government planned and executed in order to prevent exposure. There are, after all, forces within the US government who seek to maintain the military power structure established in the last century, and will not hesitate to resuscitate the terror of nuclear arms in order to achieve that end. My intent is to expose their activity, and the entirety of the Shadow Moses affair, through this book. Only then can we hope to free the coming generations from the Damnosa Hereditas? Never heard this phrase before. Of the 20th century nuclear arms race. So she's saying, let's scan through something really quick. Something caught my eye. Okay, she had two optical discs. One has the entire record of events that took place. That's the one that the journalist we just saw got a hold of, because he knew about all this too. Everything she's saying right here is in the first optical disc. That's the one that guy must have gotten a hold of. But then she says the other remaining disc holds the details of Foxdie. That other guy didn't go into that, so he didn't have that disc. She must have kept this one for herself. But it talks about it in this book, which then became its own optical disc that guy got a hold of. Her book that she wrote here, her account, I guess, was stored on the optical disc that crazy journalist guy had, whose account we just read. Okay, moving on. I looked up from the mass of documents at the sound of the doorbell. On a monitor in front of me was a half-finished status report on the resurgence of nuclear arms development in a certain Middle Eastern state. The UNSCOM, United Nations Special Commission, had officially requested a survey by the UN weapons inspectors and had been refused entry. Tensions were once again running high in the Gulf. As a military analyst whose specialty was nuclear arms, I was under contract from a think tank to produce a study of the situation. It was due the day after the next, and interruptions were definitely not welcome. I ground out my cigarette in the ashtray and stepped out of the study. All visitors to my house are checked via surveillance camera and then let in through the heavy gate. The property itself is surrounded by a high wall. It may seem like overkill for a beach community, but security is a necessity in greater Los Angeles, if only to keep out the legion of swimsuit-clad tourists. However, there was nobody to be seen at the gate. It was either a prank or the camera was malfunctioning. Reluctant to investigate but feeling unsettled nevertheless, I headed back to the study and sat back down at the computer to continue my work. Just then, someone spoke behind me. They always were a little careless. I spun around, kicking my chair over. There was a man standing at the entrance of the study, slouching in a well-tailored suit. "Richard!" He caught my eye and grinned. Ignoring my surprise, he strolled into the room, gazing around at the pile of books and papers. And still as disorganized as ever. He shrugged his shoulders in a familiar gesture, triggering a wave of memories laced with bitterness. Richard Ames and I were married once upon a time. We were both young and working for the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. We spent much of our brief marriage in disagreement over virtually every issue, and just as I came to realize that our union was a mistake, he disappeared from my life. A while later, I received the paperwork for divorce from his lawyer. There was a generous alimony offer involved, which I refused. Not only did I find the thought of owing him anything intolerable, I also wanted to prove that he was not the only one who could walk away without an explanation. The divorce was finalized without us ever meeting face to face, and we were legally strangers once again. In the 5 years since, I quit the DIA and became a freelance analyst. I had not seen Richard at all, nor even heard of his whereabouts. How did you get in here? I demanded. After all, attempting to scale the wall or force the front door would immediately trigger the security system, but he refused to be ruffled. If you're going to use a flimsy lock like that, may as well not bother. I'd recommend a more professional security setup. Does the term breaking and entering mean anything to you, Richard? You know law isn't my field of expertise, he replied nimbly and peered over my shoulder at the report on the computer display. Radioisotope projectile separator. Uranium-235 production feasibility for high-speed gas centrifuge. This must be about that Middle East nuke development. Looks like your career is going well. That's great. I pushed Richard aside and asked him flatly, "What do you want?" He took a step back and regarded me with a slightly mischievous smile. What, you're afraid I came back to give us another chance? He let the silence linger as if to relish my reaction. Then, suddenly formal, he continued, "It's an official request from the DIA." He placed a folder on the desk. "I'm asking for your cooperation as a member of NEST. NEST stands for Nuclear Emergency Search Team, a group that operates on the Department of Energy budget. It was established in 1974 to provide technological support to the FBI, to the FBI in areas of intelligence, investigation, site securement, damage containment, and medical response during incidents involving criminal threats of nuclear weapon use. Call it a band of experts on nuclear terrorism, if you will. NEST consists of independently contracted scientists from federally funded research entities like Los Alamos and Lawrence Livermore, and military specialists from groups dealing with nuclear arms issues. I happen to be one of the latter group. Richard was opening the file folder. You've heard of Shadow Moses Island, I assume? I nodded assent. I had indeed heard of the remote place north of Alaska's Fox Islands. Though it was hardly public knowledge, the island was home to a nuclear weapons disposal facility. According to the terms of the START II Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, the total number of tactical nuclear warheads owned by the US and Russia were reduced to somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500 in the later decades of the 20th century. The outcome was a massive number of warheads in need of disposal when there was already a shortage of storage space for radioactive materials. As a result, warheads had to be kept somewhere before they could be dismantled and their radioactive elements extracted for long-term storage. Excuse me. The Shadow Moses facility was the answer. It was a crystallization of the forces of nuclear proliferation, political engineering that gives preference to delaying a solution, rather than producing one, and a hidden military agenda to preserve what it could of the old nuclear stockpile. Yeah, that'll do it. Richard took out several photographs from the folder and handed them to me. They all appear to be satellite captures of the nuclear weapons disposal plant on Shadow Moses Island, perhaps acquired from the NRO, National Reconnaissance Office. There were multiple human figures around the building structures. Richard broke the silence. The disposal plant was seized by terrorists. I looked up sharply at the news, but his next words left me speechless. And the ringleaders are Foxhound members. An irregular team of the best commandos the military has to offer, armed with cutting-edge technology. That was Foxhound. The best of the best, and completely unknown to the public they ostensibly serve. Their function was to intervene in the kind of low-intensity conflicts the U.S. could not officially touch. They were the shadow soldiers of numerous regional conflicts and civil wars, shaping history with sabotage, selective assassination, and other covert acts of war. Richard had more to say. It's not just Foxhound that's involved in this. Foxhound was conducting joint exercises with the Next Generation Special Forces, and they're a part of the takeover as well. Yeah. The Next Generation Special Forces is an aggressive anti-terrorism squad deployed to counter acts of political violence involving weapons of mass destruction such as nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare methods. The combat philosophy is derived from the one used for Force 21, and most of the recruits come from a mercenary background. The men are intensively trained in VR environments, and their combat capability is estimated to be well beyond even those of Delta Force or the Night Stalkers. While the government categorically denies the accusation, there are persistent rumors that the men have been genetically enhanced to increase tactical advantage. Foxhound and the Next Generation Special Forces, I'm checking the time, they were without a doubt the most skilled group of fighting men produced by the US, and they had hijacked the nuclear arsenal. Richard had more bad news. There are also civilian hostages involved. Two of them happen to be the DARPA chief, Donald Anderson and Kenneth Baker, the president of Armstack, Inc. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency is the research satellite of the U.S. Defense Department charged with planning and leading the development of new weapons technology. AT happens to be one of the top 3 defense contractors in the country. There is no such thing as a coincidence, especially the kind that involves the head of these 2 organizations meeting in an out-of-way nuclear weapons disposal plant. I decided to be direct with Richard. There was something going on in that disposal facility, I take it. Let me guess. A demonstration of a new weapon. How should I know? Shadow Moses is also a prime northern lights observation locale. You know. I said it in the wrong cadence, but you get it. It was also a prime northern lights observation locale, you know. Whatever Richard knew, he wasn't telling, but his evasiveness only confirmed my suspicions. Whatever was going on, this was no ordinary terrorist incident. With that in mind, I moved on to another point. What are their demands? They want a body. Not just any corpse, though. They want Foxhound's founder, Big Boss. Legendary soldier, best fighting man of the 20th century, the whole works. His body? Why would they want something like that so badly? No idea. But unless they have it within 24 hours, they'll launch a nuclear strike. Richard glanced at the watch coolly. So we have about 19 hours. You don't seem too worried. The DoD is already working on the situation. The Department of Defense. Didn't clarify that earlier, but... Just as I'd suspected, Richard always has a plan in place and the machinery in motion before opening up to someone else. All he asks from others is approval after the fact. Shadow Moses is completely locked down. We had to rule out deploying an entire assault team. Instead, we're inserting a single operative to free the hostages and prevent a nuclear strike. Impossible. Possible for Solid Snake. Solid Snake, the former Foxhound, a legend among mercenaries for single-handedly bringing down the fortress cities of Outer Heaven and Zanzibar Land. Yes, with Solid Snake in the picture, there was a possibility of success. But still. USS Discovery, an Ohio-class nuclear submarine, is already in place with Snake aboard. So the plan was already a go. I looked Richard in the eye and held his gaze. And what do I have to do with all of this? He grinned. Snake may be a legend, but he knows jack about nuclear weapons, which is why I'm asking you to be a part of mission support. We'll have you set up in no time. Right on cue, 2 men started to move a large piece of hardware, apparently communication equipment, into the study. Richard nodded towards the bulky load. I'd like you to be available to Snake for consultation via satellite link-up. As soon as the equipment was in place, an engineer type started to make adjustments. I could see another group of men setting up a satellite dish in the backyard. They were all in civilian clothes, but not a few of them had the build and the oddly fitting jacket that marked them as armed military personnel. Clearly, refusal was not an option. But there was still something that puzzled me. Nest has a small investigative team, SRT, on standby at all times for immediate response. They were stationed at Nellis AFB in Las Vegas, just over in Nevada. Clearly, they were the natural choice for this assignment. And if not the SRT, the DIA also had a number of qualified nuclear weapons specialists. Richard had started to direct his men on where to set up the equipment, but I interrupted him. Why me? He turned and answered without missing a beat. I need people I can trust. There's too much at stake. It was a lie. The Richard Ames I knew trusted no one. But it was clear that whatever the reason, he did not intend to tell me. It's a good thing I was in. What would you have done if I weren't? You have to be somewhere. We would have located you. I'm sure you would have. So, are you in? I took a deep breath. Of course. I don't enjoy being a pawn, especially Richard's, but I had no intention of standing by while nuclear terrorism was in progress. A nuclear strike takes an untold number of lives, all in a blink of an eye. Adults and infants, women and men, it kills indiscriminately. If there was a chance that I could do something to stay the hand on the nuclear button, I had to do it. So everything is set. Richard slapped a fist into the other palm. Shit, I can't do that. He did this. Like the Warrior of Light in FF14, right? Just doing that every fucking scene when it's go time. The insertion was a success. Snake is on Shadow Moses. Richard walked into the study with the update he'd just received from one of his men. This explains why in the remake, because this wasn't true in the original, but in the remake, in the Twin Snakes, you're not able to call Nastasha until you're already inside the base. But in the original, we could call Nastasha and they told us her frequency as soon as we were already... the submarine sequence was over and like before you even go up the elevator. At the very beginning of the game. But you can see in the remake, they edited it, so you actually don't get Nastasha's frequency and you cannot call her until you're after the heliport, where Liquid Snake already takes off with the helicopter to go take out the fighter jets using the Hind D helicopter, right? They literally paid so much attention to detail with the remake, with Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, that they made sure this, that we're reading right now, actually happens before you're able to actually call Nastasha and talk to her as Snake. That's some dedication to the writing on that remake. Because obviously when they made the original game, they hadn't planned on all this. This is all something they made for Metal Gear Solid 2, right? What we're reading right now. So when they went back to remake the first game, they were like, let's make sure there's continuity. Let's make sure this is part of it. So you can't even talk to her until much later now. She wasn't set up. So at the time that Snake was being, thrust into the base, with the little submarine and everything, she was having her home invaded by this dude, her ex-husband, and these military guys setting her up so that she could be part of the support team for Snake. Okay, so I read that. Yeah, the update he just received from his men. The study was almost unrecognizable, thanks in part to the racks of communication hardware. Cables snaked across every square inch of available space, and engineers and DI agents were coming and going in controlled chaos. The place looked like what it now was, a temporary mission control room. Richard laid a hand on my shoulder. We should be hearing from him soon. You're clear on how to use the radio? I nodded assent. While the engineers were busy setting up the equipment, I had been briefed on its use as well as the mission. Snake had been delivered to the general area of Shadow Moses Island by USS Discovery, an Ohio-class nuclear submarine. He was then ejected from the submarine on a swimmer delivery vehicle, SDV, which he abandoned once within the range of underwater listening devices located near the disposal plant. He would swim the rest of the way in the freezing cold Bering Sea water. This last leg of the insertion struck me as nothing short of suicidal until I learned that Solid Snake was outfitted with a state-of-the-art sneaking suit, and had been injected with a compound designed to prevent the onset of hypothermia. In addition, while Snake would be the only field operative involved, he would be in radio contact with the support team during much of the mission. We reached the 2-hour mark. The members of this support team drew from a wide range of backgrounds. The mission control officer was Colonel Roy Campbell, who would remain aboard the USS Discovery. I knew him by reputation alone. He was a former Foxhound commander and Solid Snake's CO, commanding officer. Forgot to clarify that earlier. Forgive me. During the quelling of the 1999 Zanzibar land uprising. He had retired soon after, but from the looks of things, he had been called out of retirement for this mission. Dr. Naomi Hunter, a genetic engineering expert on the temporary assignment from the Gentech giant ATGC, was also on the team. She had apparently been leading the bioengineering program for Foxhound. Richard matter-of-factly confirmed that both Foxhound and the Next Generation Special Forces had been undergoing genetic manipulation to enhance their combat capability. I have a difficult time grasping what we have come to, modifying a person's essential genetic structure for the sake of creating a better soldier. Also aboard the Discovery was Mei Ling, the inventor of the new radar and communication system deployed for this mission. She was something of an engineering wonderkind, an MIT student who managed to turn the current protocol of secure communication completely on its head. The last of the support team was MacDonald Miller, a former survival instructor for Foxhound. Unlike the rest of us, he had volunteered his services upon receiving news of the incident on Shadow Moses. Like myself, he was working via satellite link up from his home in Alaska. The 5 of us were more than equipped to support Snake from our respective areas of expertise. But Snake was still the lone field operative, and the mission was a desperate one. Despite that, Richard maintained that this was the most workable plan produced by the DoD situational analysis. In hindsight, perhaps I should have suspected something then. The signs of a conspiracy were there, cleverly disguised as it was in a seemingly reckless mission plan. But we failed to see it, and both Solid Snake and I were to regret our folly bitterly. And this is a good spot to stop. Right there. Perfect. Just reading that last sentence made me think this is a good stopping point, because I see that the next paragraph literally starts with dialogue, real-time dialogue of when Solid Snake first calls Nastasha. And yeah, they have the transcript of that actual call from the original game. The way she answers him. Good to meet you, Solid Snake, yada yada. But yeah, we'll start there tomorrow. So page 49. So because this is probably going to take, even if I did it all in one go, which is impossible, my voice is already gone right now. Because this is probably going to take an entire stream, for the sake of preserving my voice and keeping my my vocal cords from being sore the next day or something, and being able to actually carry conversation in day-to-day life, because I need to be able to do that in my daily life, I think the next couple streams are just going to be 1 hour, because it's just going to be this book. Meaning, I think we can finish this in 2 streams that are 1 hour each, which is why I said the rest of this book would probably take an entire stream, 2 hours, if I did it all in one go. So because I know it's going to take at least 2 hours to get through the rest of this, I'm going to do 2 separate streams that are 1 hour long each, and I'm going to call all 3 of these, this stream, the next one, and the one after that, where we're just reading this book and everything else, I'll just name them prologues for MGS2. Because most people, when they're looking for this, well, for any video game, but, in this case, most people looking up Metal Gear Solid 2 gameplay on YouTube or Twitch or whatever are not looking for a fucking audiobook narration of the game's previous story recap. So I'm going to label these as prologues so people can safely skip them without missing any of the game. So obviously that means I will redo the intro as well. The little bit of gameplay I already did do, I'll redo that when we're done reading this. Because at this point it's so far removed, it's going to feel very disjointed if I go from that to then all this for 2-3 streams and then suddenly go back to the gameplay where I left off, where I already saved the game. So I'll just hit new game again and start all over, which is not saying much, it's just the intro scenes. I literally walked around and took out 2 guards and that's it. So we'll start all over and call that part 1 officially once we're done with the prologue, which is these little story recaps we're doing right now. So yeah, the next couple streams will just be me auditioning for narrating books on Audible or something, I don't know. Like Simon Plebb did 1984, which is, yeah, that's the... If anybody caught that reference at the beginning of the stream, that's the book I decided to read before starting streaming this game. And I say read, quote unquote, to actually listen to. I listened to it on Audible because I'd heard a long time ago that book inspired a lot of the plot points and storyline for this game in particular, Metal Gear Solid 2. So I figured, why not read it? That's why I made the Big Brother reference earlier. But yeah. Anyway, that's just an aside. So yeah, that's the end of the stream. Next stream, we'll continue this from here, page 49. Starts the Shadow Moses incident in real time, I guess. Nastasha's account of it from her point of view in her home in Los Angeles. What's funny is, despite the fact that they went back to make sure the continuity was correct in the GameCube version, the Twin Snakes, the remake, it's still completely 100% optional to call Nastasha. You never have to call her once, even in the remake. It's still nice that they made it so you can't call her until much later, so it coincides with this story that we're reading right now, so there's actual continuity with this story. It matches up with Metal Gear Solid 2. But, well, this little prologue thing. But, you still never have to call her. You never have to have a single conversation with her. Not once. Just a funny little Easter egg about Metal Gear Solid 1. Anyway, yeah, my voice is getting hoarse, so I'm done. This is it for now. I wasn't expecting narration. I thought I was done with that stuff for a while after FF14, but here we are again. But I don't mind it. I like it. I like this stuff. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't be doing it. If I was bored reading this right now, I wouldn't be doing it. I would have said fuck it. But no, I actually like this stuff. I like lore. I play games for the story a lot. They still have to have good gameplay, but if it has a really good story, I can forgive shoddy gameplay sometimes. Like The Last of Us. That is not my style. But that's just an example. I just don't like that game's version of stealth and the fact that it's forced on you so much. It's just horrible. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. So yeah, I like the story a lot, so I don't mind reading this. So yeah, we'll pick up from here next time, and that's it for me for now. So as always, thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for all the support on Twitch and YouTube, wherever you decide to watch and support. I appreciate you all very much. And as always, please look after yourselves, take care of each other, stay safe out there. And until next time, please have a good morning, afternoon, evening, and good night. And I think to close out the stream, because there's a delay since I have it on normal latency, I'm going to go ahead and just go back to the main menu and maybe let the intro play. The cinematic little intro from Metal Gear Solid 2 we already saw. And either when it's over or during the middle of it, I'll cut the stream then. So that nothing that I'm saying right now gets cut off from the video. So, all right, everybody. Excuse me. Take it easy. Good to be back. Some fun times ahead.